some of the questions that may have occurred directly from his presentation this morning. So if I could go through a couple of housekeeping issues quickly. Woody Mosqueda here, as well as Ryan Bowling in the back, have the microphone. I know this is a small venue, but if you have a question, please raise your hand. When someone finds you with the microphone, stand up, please state your name and your outlet. That would be very much appreciated. So without further ado, please welcome again Phil Harrison, President of our Worldwide Studio Group. I'll actually address that if you don't mind. I think that the assumption is that all of you attended the keynote. Is that not correct? But I think we actually bucked tradition with the Game Developers Conference and allowed for photograph and video, which a lot of companies, including our competitors, didn't do. So we're just assuming that that would have been taken care of, and this is the time to actually ask any follow-up questions. So I apologize if that's inconvenient to you, but that's what we decided.
Well, one follow-up there. The whole deck, whether it goes on our site or whether it'll be on other people's site, I'm sure we'll be there. Dean?
Dean Takahashi, San Jose Mercury News. Can you synchronize us a little bit with what was talked about last week and what was new in your presentation today? And for example, I think there was some discussion of whether a hard drive is going to be standard or it's going to be optional last week. Can you sort of fill us in?
Well, I think that what Kutaragi-san was saying in Japanese and what may have been said in English could easily be different, and I'm afraid I wasn't there, so I don't have the exact frame of reference. But I think what you saw clearly from my presentation this morning is that hard disk drive is a key feature of PlayStation 3, not just for games, but for the network platform, for downloading music, for downloading and enjoying movies. So it is a key feature of the platform. As far as hardware announcements are concerned, that's not my gig, and that will happen at E3. So apologies if I swerve a couple of the questions.
If I follow up on that, isn't that important for the game developers to know, though, that if there's a hard drive there, they can design their game in a different way?
Developers are designing their games to support hard drive. Every single game that we do as Worldwide Studios will support the hard drive.
But treat it as if it were always there? What if it's not there? What happens to the game?
I think that kind of speculation, I agree, is rife. But as I said, this is a Worldwide Studios discussion, not a product announcement. And I would ask that we keep those questions until E3. Yeah.
Chris Cook from GamePro magazine. You announced that there was going to be a worldwide simultaneous launch across the world. But, what sort of steps is
we decided to restrict it just to this planet.
What sort of steps is Sony taking to ensure that there are enough units for consumers when the system launches? A possible way to avoid what happened to Microsoft, where there's still not being enough consoles for people who want to buy them.
I'm the head of the software studios, not the head of the manufacturing plant, but I think that you can see from our history that Sony Computer Entertainment has been very effective at matching consumer demand with supply. What that turns into at launch, I know some consumers will be disappointed. That's an inevitability at any hardware launch. But what is the important fact is that our ramp up at over 1 million units per month is the fastest ramp up we've ever had.
Hi, I'm Kim Peterson with the Seattle Times. I'd like to ask you for your take on the November release in terms of the Xbox 360 being on the shelves for a full year ahead of that. How much does the November launch put you at any sort of competitive disadvantage?
It doesn't put us at a competitive disadvantage at all. Throughout our history, we have never been the first platform to market in what would be considered, the generation shifts. Although I think it's an interesting debate as to where some of our competitors sit on that generational timeline, which we could spend hours talking about today. But I think that what you saw clearly today and what you've seen through our previous announcements is that we have a tremendously powerful piece of hardware backed up with great tools, great technology that the developers can use to harness it. And what we're now seeing is great creativity, not just in the game side, but innovation on the network platform and what that will deliver in the consumer experience. Those two together is what will power PlayStation 3, and I have no concerns about the competition.
Games.net. You mentioned PlayStation 1 emulation for the PSP, and I was curious if there would be any optimizations or any kind of changes made to those games, or if it would be as is.
Good question. I don't have the specific details on that, but I know that for PlayStation 3 backwards compatibility, we will be providing some optimization for PS1 and PS2 backwards compatibility. We will make more announcements on that in future, but technically it's possible on PSP, although the headroom is obviously relatively small compared to what we can do on PS3.
Hi, I'm Daniel Turdman from CNETnews.com, and I'm curious about the networked PlayStation 3 network. Are you expecting to have a sort of a two-way ecosystem of user-created content that can be uploaded and sold, micropayments, and sort of creating the secondary market that's so popular for requests and things like that?
Absolutely, yes. We believe that the power of a network is obviously a construct of the number of people who are in that network, and you can see the impact that destinations like eBay and Amazon.com have. What makes those destinations powerful is the fact that consumers are contributing content as well as the sort of owner of that platform, and we see exactly the same metaphor applying to the PlayStation 3 experience. And I think what you saw with SingStar at the end, that product is going to use a lot of social network type functions, which clearly blow out the consumer experience tremendously, and we're very, very excited about what that brings to games. We've not had that two-way communication or N-way communication before.
Michelle Alexandria with Money Press International. Can you expand more on what types of content will be available for your for the PlayStation Network, and to go further, how would someone go about actually putting content onto the network? How controlled would it be?
Okay, the initiative that I announced, the Worldwide Studios e-distribution initiative, is a first-party initiative to try and capture new creators and new developers that we haven't previously worked with. Obviously, whatever we do as a publisher and as a platform holder has to be subject to ESRB ratings and PEGI ratings and the equivalent SERA ratings in Japan. So if that answers the kind of control factor, we will obviously be within the accepted norms of ratings. But in terms of innovation, I want to push beyond the traditional definitions that we would see in a game at retail.
But will you branch out beyond game content and use like television programs from independent producers and Sony?
It's all bits, yes. I mean, it's digital, so we want to be able to download episodic content, whether it be games or whether it be linear programming, music, movies, television, or some blended combination of interactive and linear. The possibilities are endless, and I know that sounds like a soundbite, but it's true. We do have this tremendous landscape for creativity and innovation, and I hope that can be unlocked in people's minds. Do you have a microphone here?
I'm Jean-Baptiste Su with La Tribune in Paris. Do you think that developers today have the necessary tools to create those high-quality games in time for the November launch, and relatively easy despite the complexity of the PS3 system?
It's a good question. I think that one of the perfectly reasonable criticisms of PlayStation 2 was that it was an incredibly powerful machine, but was a fairly complex machine to program for. Although it didn't affect our ability to sell 100 and something million of them and a billion units of software, but I accept that it was difficult to program for. And that was down to the rather proprietary nature of some of the specialist chips that were in the machine. Compare that with PlayStation 3, where the SPUs are very general purpose architecture, and they can be programmed using high-level programming languages like C and C++. And you saw a lot of the developers shared some of their thoughts on that, and it goes to a lot of things. It goes to efficiency. It means you can write more stuff quicker, you can use more general purpose programmers, and you can use less people to get a more powerful effect. That is then coupled with all the great work which is being done by the tool and middleware companies, and you saw some of the innovations that people like Havoc and Epic and Agea will bring to the platform. And those two together mean that developers are able to get higher, faster, quicker in their exploitation of the capabilities of the machine, and we're seeing that already.
Thank you.
Do we have a microphone?
Chris Ramo, ShackNews.com. In regards to downloadable content, in terms of games specifically, there was a lot of talk, obviously, about episodic games, downloadable games in your keynote. What about, is that going to be open to actual entire full-scale games that might otherwise be sold that pick up, a good deal of Blu-ray disc? The PC, we're now starting to see digital distribution of full, high-budget AAA games. Is that going to be something we see on PS3?
There is no restriction as to what you could download to your PS3. There are clearly some differences in the rollout of broadband around the world. And in some countries, for a long time, the most efficient way of getting 50 gigabytes of stuff into somebody's home is to put it on a Blu-ray disc and go buy it in a store. But I think we'll see some markets who've got very powerful broadband penetration and high bandwidth moving towards e-distribution more rapidly. But we don't see that happening overnight. Blu-ray disc will be the primary distribution medium for the AAA games that you would expect to support the launch of PlayStation 3. But over time, we'll see the download of additional content, and then we'll see the download of full games. But we are not going to be the ones to control that. It's more the consumer's choice.
Rick Merritt from EE Times. At CES, we heard that Blu-ray was being delayed because a lot of the content protection decisions and mechanisms to enable those decisions were still being made. Can you give us an update on where we're at with Blu-ray content protection and what decisions have been made? Is it all done? And where's that at?
Well, I would refer you to the announcements that are made by the Blu-ray Forum, the Blu-ray Disc Association, because that's outside of my remit. We are a partner of that association, but we don't make the rules. We're kind of a customer of them rather than a driver of them. But clearly, they've made announcements that say that all of those have been resolved and that they're now in rollout of hardware and indeed content for movie players. So I don't believe that there are any roadblocks ahead.
Phil Keyes with Nikkei Electronics. A couple questions regarding the network. First of all, is it going to be restricted to delivery of content just to the PS3, or will it be available to other sort of products either within the Sony family or outside the Sony family? And second question regarding the micropayment system. Will that also be available for other contents other than game-related contents?
First question is, with regard to the network platform, the focus is around the launch of PlayStation 3, but shortly it will then extend out to PlayStation Portable to PSP, and we will have an integrated commerce and community across both platforms. As it relates to formats within Sony that are not Sony Computer Entertainment formats, that's not currently on the plan, but I don't see why it couldn't be, but it's not currently on the plan. There's no reason why it couldn't be, but it's not currently envisaged. And I forgot your second question.
Micropayment.
Oh, micropayment.
Beyond game content.
Yeah, I mean, I see no reason why you shouldn't be able to use the commerce engine of the network platform to buy or rent the ability to listen to a song or watch a TV clip or whatever. We are talking about any digital content here.
We have about 5 more minutes, so I don't know if anybody... Oh, lots of
Sticks.
questions. Ryan and Woody, we need to...
Will Tuttle from GameSpy.com. I was wondering, we saw a number of titles today that went off, and I was wondering if those are planned launch titles, specifically Insomniac Game and Motorstorm, stuff like that. And I was also wondering how many launch titles you plan to have with PS3.
I will duck that question by saying all of that will be at E3. I mean, clearly, it would be very difficult for me sat here today to predict exactly what will be coming out in November, but I think it's fair to assume that the titles that we showed you are the ones that are going to be more advanced. Clearly, Resistance is up and running and playable. In fact, that demo was written or was created for a meeting in December, and that code is exactly what was running in December. So we're a long way off from launching that title. You'll see at E3 some real innovation as they move their code base from running on PPU to running on SPUs, as Ted was talking about in his comments there. The Motorstorm demo was, what we tried to do is to give you a flavor of what we were doing with that game, but without showing too much of the game itself. So we stripped out a lot of the gameplay just to focus on some of the cool technologies, and we'll kind of come back at E3 to show more about the game itself.
I'm Andre Fischheim with KGN from Germany, and I was wondering, you announced a basic service that would be free of charge. Could you give us any details on what this basic service will include, and is it a bit like with Xbox Live where I can do the silver membership, basically no online play?
No, that's not what I intended to convey. I thought it was clear on the slide that the basic service is free of charge, but there will be content offerings that will obviously be premium. So a subscription to a particular game service or downloading content particular to a game will be charged at a premium. You know, you will pay to download certain content. But everything that I explained in the kind of core proposition is free to the consumer, including multiplayer gaming. We have no plans to charge for that at the moment. Yeah, one at the back there.
Hi, James Brightman, Game Daily Biz. I was wondering, you said that you mentioned the controller design would be finalized in the next few months, and I was wondering, you know.
Did I?
Well, I thought you said in the E3 time frame.
Okay. Oh, right, yes.
So I was wondering, was the immersion lawsuit, how does that affect, or how will it affect the final design? Is that why we didn't really see any kind of display of the controller?
That has no impact on why we didn't show the controller. The controller will be revealed at E3, and it has no reference to other issues outside of just the design of it.
Hello, Brandon Sheffield with Game Developer Magazine. You mentioned that the PS3 would support, like, it would be ready at launch with PAL, NTSC. Are all these display models going to be supported within the same box, or is it going to still be region specific? Like, will we finally have a global machine, and also region encoding, I guess, is part of the question.
I think that the answer to that question is that the things that make the games region free or not is different from what makes hardware region free. Clearly, the hardware being a TV-based system and plugging into an outlet, voltage differences in different markets mean that there will obviously be a European SKU and there will be a US and Japanese SKUs that will be, to the consumer, identical, but obviously underneath there will be some differences. Software will be region free, and it is possible for developers at their choice to put onto the software all of the TV formats that they want to choose, PAL, NTSC, and all the HD modes that they want to choose. But if they want to divide it by language, divide it by region, that's also their choice. But the concept is that software is region free.
For the last question, so PJ.
Hi, PJ McNeil from the American Technology Research. So you talked about a whole bunch of stuff today about in-game advertising, subscriptions, game object auctions, merchandising, and content. And the capabilities of the third-party publishers really vary, from company to company about what strengths they have in-house. As you look at those different areas, what kind of areas are you going to be doing the heavy lifting and helping to support this stuff? You're putting the onus on the third-party guys to develop that themselves.
That Wheel of Fortune slide that you're referring to with all those different functions was really trying to convey an industry message that this is the world we're moving into. And I fully accept that we won't move to ticking every single one of those boxes day one, and I fully accept that not every publisher will also be able to achieve that. But the network platform will do a lot of that heavy lifting, as you say, for developers and publishers. From a worldwide studios perspective, from the business that I'm responsible for, that is absolutely our strategy. In fact, that slide comes out of my board presentation for the strategy. That is the way our business is going, and that's the way we want to push our creators and our developers. And we hope that by innovating in that way, that the rest of the industry will be inspired by that and will do the same. That's one of the roles of being a first-party publisher, developer, and platform holder, is to innovate the market. Sorry, Molly.
So that was the.
We have the